versus Sean Combs, Sean Puff Daddy Combs, also known as Sean P. Diddy, also known as Diddy, Bad Boy Records label owner, founder, also known as Puff P. Daddy, Bad Boy Diddy Run the City, Sean Combs, also known as Sean Puffy Combs.
A big win for Sean Diddy Combs as he faces criminal and civil actions related to his alleged bad behavior over the years. An inmate in Michigan who claims that Combs sexually assaulted him back in the 1990s had his case thrown out of federal court. We're going to take a look at some of the wildest accusations that Derek Cardello Smith made in his motions and why he insists the case should continue. So, the man who went viral for being granted a $100 million default judgment against Sean Diddy Combs, then had it taken away, unfortunately for him, well, he has lost his most recent battle. But will this be the last that we see of the incredibly litigious Derek Cardello Smith? Who is he again? If you're like, who is this guy? What are we talking about? Well, he is an inmate currently incarcerated at the Ernst C. Brooks Correctional Facility out in Michigan. This is a guy who's been convicted multiple times for criminal sexual conduct and kidnapping. In fact, last year, Cardello Smith, if you really want to talk about how we know about him, he appeared last year on a judge's live stream from prison representing himself to explain that he wanted an injunction against Sean Diddy Combs. According to Cardello Smith, Combs owed him millions of dollars. So what he wanted was Combs to be prevented from selling his mansion out in Los Angeles because there might have been an alleged effort to hide or get rid of assets. But what's the connection between Cardello Smith and Sean Combs? Well, in court filings, Cardello Smith claims, he alleges, that Combs drugged and raped him at a party in the 1990s out in Detroit. And he has even said that he has spoken with Sean Combs multiple times about a payout, even in person, which is something that Combs strongly denies. His attorneys later told the court, we don't even know who this guy is. But since Combs' team didn't respond to that lawsuit when it was filed, and Combs was allegedly served, the judge granted a default judgment in favor of Cardello Smith, and that meant Cardello Smith was apparently going to get $100 million. A default judgment is, you don't respond, the court automatically rules in the opposing party's favor. So he's going to get $100 million. But, of course, what he would do with it from behind bars is unclear. But I will tell you, the victory didn't last long. Why? Because Combs' lawyer said, look, we didn't even know Combs had been sued, that we just heard about this default judgment in the media. So they immediately contacted the court to get things worked out, and that default judgment was revoked. And the case was also moved from state to federal court. Now, of course, during all this, Combs and his legal team, they are dealing with other major legal fights, including more than a dozen civil lawsuits accusing the disgraced music mogul of rape and assault, as well as, of course, federal criminal charges that he's facing related to sex trafficking, racketeering. His trial currently scheduled for May of 2025. Now, Combs has always denied any and all alleged sexual misconduct and says he is looking forward to proving his innocence in court. Now, going back to Cardello Smith, the fight against Cardello Smith, this wouldn't be an easy one. He has become something of a serial filer of lawsuits and habeas corpus petitions and other filings in state and federal courts, most often representing himself. He's got these long legal filings, sometimes hundreds of pages long. They're full of citations and case law. I will tell you, though, Cardello Smith's personality certainly comes through in some of the language that he uses. He's also a big fan of run-on sentences. But anyway, attorneys for Combs have called out Cardello Smith, specifically that his claims, they say, are wildly untrue. They say his allegations are baseless, that Combs has never met him, that what he's trying to do is extort millions of dollars from a man who's already facing a lot of legal trouble. So they asked the judge to throw this whole case out. And that is what happened. According to the judgment filed in the Eastern District of Michigan, the motion to dismiss was granted. Permission to file an interlocutory appeal was denied, and Combs' motion for sanctions against Cardello Smith was also denied. We're going to talk all about that, but I want to first look at the request for dismissal. So Combs' team says, look, even if this did happen, which they insist it didn't, this case is time barred. The statute of limitations has run out. According to the filing in 1997, when this alleged assault happened, the statute of limitations was 3 years to bring a claim. So the court ruled because plaintiff's claim is time barred, the court grants the motion to dismiss. And what about that interlocutory appeal? What is that, by the way? So that's basically an appeal of a judge's order about a specific issue while the main case is still going on. So you're appealing an issue while the case still proceeds, but if that issue is heard and decided by a higher court, it can definitely have an effect on the entirety of the case. So here, for example, with respect to an interlocutory appeal, it's about moving the case to state court from federal court. So as the court's order mentions, interlocutory appeals, they are, quote, granted sparingly and only in exceptional cases. But there's a bigger issue why an interlocutory appeal doesn't work here. The court writes, granting permission for an interlocutory appeal would not accelerate the conclusion of this litigation because this litigation has now reached a final conclusion. Accordingly, plaintiff's motion for permission to file an interlocutory appeal is denied. Basically, it's moot. It's over. There's no point of it. Then there's the third order on sanctions. So Combs' lawyers want Cardello Smith to be punished in some way for what they say amounts basically to harassment and extortion. We've talked about this before on other sidebars, that if you're a lawyer or, you're representing yourself, you can't file frivolous claims and frivolous complaints and frivolous motions. They have to be backed up by the facts, the law. They can't be done just to harass or intimidate anybody. Otherwise, you're going to get on the bad side of the court and you'll be punished. So Combs' team writes, defendant provides several grounds for his request. He alleges that plaintiff, again talking about Cardello Smith, that plaintiff's allegations are wholesale fabrications, plaintiff has forged documents, and plaintiff has filed meritless and duplicative documents. So part of those alleged wholesale fabrications are apparently fake documents. Yeah, Combs and his team say that Cardello Smith filed things with the court that were completely made up. And by the way, even though he's representing himself, he's not immune from sanctions or being punished by the court. You decide to represent yourself, you face the same consequences as any other attorney. So one of those filings, or fake filings, is from back in December. And in it, a person alleging to be Sean Combs seemingly admits to raping Cardello Smith and admits to pinning other rape cases on Cardello Smith and promises to pay the inmate $35 million. Wow, I can't believe that Sean Combs would admit to all this. My gosh. Well, I want to take a look at this document that was put together by Cardello Smith, which the defense says is complete nonsense. Remember, this is supposed to be in Sean Combs' voice. It reads, I agree to the settlement offered to this plaintiff in the original amount of $35 million, and the only reason I am disclosing it is because plaintiff wanted it made public in order for me to not fight the case anymore and to remove any hint of denial of plaintiff's claim of sexual assault I did upon him and other measures that have been discussed throughout previous meetings at the facilities over the years when I met with plaintiff and my agents met with plaintiff at various prisons. So the man claiming to be Sean Combs then switches to all caps for some reason. Quote, Derek, you also must agree to not release the names and addresses of the properties where I stayed and where our parties happened, and at most importantly, Derek, you agree to not release the names and addresses of the people in Michigan who attended those parties, and you agree to not release the addresses of the recordings in Michigan that we did, and in return for your silence, I will notify Kim Worthy through my connections and Mark Agnifilo to get the ladies who lied on you and said that you raped them to come forward. By the way, little backstory here on what we're talking about. So Cardello Smith, as I mentioned, he's currently locked up, and he's locked up for sex crimes. He insists, though, that he's innocent, that the police set him up. He was convicted of 2 counts of third-degree sexual conduct in 1998, was eventually paroled. But when he got out, prosecutors say he committed more sexual offenses because he was convicted in 2008 on 6 counts of first-degree criminal sexual conduct and 2 counts of kidnapping. He ended up entering a plea of no contest in that case. And then in 2019, he was convicted again of 4 counts of first-degree sexual misconduct. So this alleged Diddy stipulation continues. Again, it's in all caps. And by the way, if this was really Sean Combs' writings, it appears like it's all handwritten. If Combs really did agree to this and write this, wouldn't it have been in the proper format and proper form? I don't know, something to think about. But anyway, it reads, and I will testify for you, again, this is supposed to be Sean Combs, and I will testify for you that you are in fact innocent of any crimes on them. And Derek, you have to agree to release the police report because it implicates me that in that Tupac deal, and I am already suffering in here and do not need that kind of pressure on me right now, okay? Wait, did he just say Tupac? We recently told you about this, that another criminal defendant, Dwayne Keefe D. Davis, filed a motion to dismiss his murder case in Las Vegas court. Remember, he's accused of being complicit in the murder of Tupac. He says it was actually Sean Combs who ordered the hit on Tupac Shakur back in the 1990s. So the judge in that case actually denied the motion to dismiss, but Davis is on the record accusing Combs of putting out that hit. We actually did a whole sidebar episode on it. You can go check it out on our Long Crime YouTube page for a more deeper dive on that. But again, so now you have Cardella Smith mentioning Tupac. Now, at the end of the document, the person, again, purporting to be Sean Combs, writes, "I know Mark is going to come out and say that this is not a true document, but I've been working on this for days in code and everything to get it done because these N-words are watching me and I cannot have this be made public, so handle that, and when I get out, we will settle up. Just do not do another restraining order on me, okay? That effed me up royally." Okay, so first of all, correction. So if this really is Sean Combs, now I know why it's a handwritten note, and why he didn't formally write it up, or his lawyers didn't. So it's in secret. He's apparently writing it up while he's at the Metropolitan Detention Center. Okay, makes sense now. Sorry. By the way, Mark seemingly refers to Mark Agnifilo, the high-powered attorney that is representing Combs in federal court in his criminal case. Now, this document, by the way, is allegedly even notarized, but Sean Combs' legal team says that is a complete fiction. They say Combs never even wrote this, never said any of this. He allegedly doesn't even know who Cardella Smith was until this case was filed. But Cardella Smith says that Combs is the one who is a, quote, admitted liar, and that seems to be in reference to the aftermath of a lawsuit that was filed by Combs' ex-girlfriend, Cassandra Ventura, back in November of 2023. It's that bombshell suit that sort of got the ball rolling on all of the litigation and criminal charges that Combs is facing. She accused him, remember, of not only assaulting her, but also sex trafficking her and forcing her to participate in the so-called freak-offs at different locations with male sex workers. But Combs had settled that lawsuit the next day, continued to deny any wrongdoing, but then CNN released that leaked surveillance video of Cassie and Combs in a hotel hallway in Los Angeles, where Cassie claims that she was trying to leave a freak-off, but Combs came running down the hallway in a towel, stopped her. He can be seen on camera hitting her, kicking her. It is extremely violent. And then after that video was released, Combs seemed to change his tune. He put out an apology video on Instagram, which has since been removed.
My behavior on that video is inexcusable. I take full responsibility for my actions in that video. I'm disgusted.
So Cardella Smith is saying that proves that Combs can't be trusted to tell the truth. First he says he did nothing wrong, and then he apologizes after the video came out. So the judge's order reads, plaintiff responds by alleging that defendant is an admitted liar who's attempting to retaliate against plaintiff. He also asserts that he's attempted to follow court rules and will comply with the court's orders. Plaintiff acknowledges that he is a restricted filer in the Western District of Michigan as a result of his habeas litigation there, meaning he was just filing so much stuff that didn't make sense. There had to be a restriction put on what he could file there. But he asserts that he has complied with that court's orders and intends to continue doing so. He also denies that his past lawsuits were frivolous. He further denies that his lawsuits against defendant are duplicative or brought in bad faith. So will there be legal or monetary sanctions levied against Cardella Smith like the defense wanted? Well, the order says, if the court could be confident that dismissal would deter plaintiff from further duplicative lawsuits or filings against defendant, then that would favor less restrictive sanctions or a warning. However, the court notes that despite the dismissal of plaintiff's other federal case against defendant, he has continued to file on that docket. The court is therefore concerned that plaintiff, when he is a losing party in a case, will resist being bound by the court's decision and will persist in duplicative or frivolous filings. The court cautions plaintiff to refrain from duplicative, frivolous, or harassing filings, including the filing of additional lawsuits related to the allegations in this case or the filing of unnecessary papers on the dockets of cases that have been dismissed. Failure to heed this warning will result in significant pre-filing restrictions being placed on plaintiff. Defendant's motion for sanctions is denied. However, the court cautions plaintiff that it will impose appropriate sanctions if he disregards the court's warnings and admonitions in this order. So not entirely clear what that punishment will be. Maybe he'll just completely be restricted from making filings on his own. But this case was dismissed with prejudice, meaning it's dismissed permanently, can't be refiled. And we will see if Derek Cardella Smith will choose to not file any more frivolous lawsuits. That's all we have for you right now here